by the power of Red Skull. Hail Hydra. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Pretentious review from Pretentious
Pop.
Culture. Today, Masters of the Universe Part 1, Revelation on Netflix from Kevin Smith. I'm so excited to be talking to you about it. We got a great show because your boy Justin the Culture Coyote is joined by, as always, the Disney
Disney
Grizzly,
Grizzly.
Lucas. And Jake may be joining us later. We're kind of, I think he bumped his head or something. He's just not with us. Maybe Skeletor got to him. Who knows at this point? But if you enjoy these reviews, please subscribe to Pretentious Pop Culture on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and on Twitter as well at Pretentious_pop for all your nerdy news updates and updates on whenever we're doing streams. And our TikTok's got a lot of great content there for you. Really funny stuff, really interesting stuff. I think you should check it out. Please support our partners as well. Adventures by Abels on YouTube and Instagram, as well as In the Bat Loop, Batsman, BATZZMAN on Instagram, and In the Bat Loop on YouTube and TikTok. And don't forget to leave a like for this video as well. Really helps us out. And we are brought to you, as usual, by Jake's Designs RW, but we'll get to that later. Now, Lucas, did you have some news for us today?
Yeah, there's some interesting things going on in pop culture as of right now. So the Clerks 3 scripts hit the table. So that's interesting. We haven't had any news about Clerks in a long time. Definitely a fan of Kevin Smith's work, especially, I mean, we are reviewing something that is done by Kevin Smith. So figured that would be a nice little tidbit of like information. We also
Yeah, that's
have
his next thing. He got this done. Now he's moving on to Clerks.
Yeah.
So
we also have the trailer for Chucky, the TV show, dropped yesterday. I haven't seen it yet. I might actually do a solo review, like reaction to it myself, since Justin over here isn't really into horror, and then my compadre Alex also isn't really into Chucky. So maybe I'll give you like a solo reaction of that. And then we also have Army of Thieves trailers that dropped as well. Yesterday, was it, or was it the day before?
I think it was just sometime over the weekend.
Sometime over the weekend, so
It's
somewhat recently.
Yeah, because it was just like a Twitter thing. They put it on Twitter first, and then it was
Interesting.
on YouTube. So yeah, I mean it's cool. I'm loving the whole, the fact that they're doing a zombie movie without zombies, which is so strange. You know, it's they're just like, we're gonna make a movie set in the world where there is zombies, but there's not a lot of zombies in our movie, and it's just a heist movie, and it's a
Exactly.
prequel
Yeah.
to Army of the Dead. And
So I just see them as heist movies in general, with like Army of the Dead was like a zombie backdrop, basically, right?
no,
So
that was a
maybe all
straight
these.
up zombie movie. They're killing zombies left and
Well,
right.
they're killing zombies, but like zombies just exist inside of this heist movie. That's the way I saw it.
Well, the
Uh,
way they pitched it is, in America, America has been taken over by the zombie
mm,
outbreak, and it's caused their economy to collapse, making banks a lot easier to break into. Everything's unstable, and that's kind of where we start. That, according to the producers and such. But Zack Snyder did not write or direct this movie. Um, that being said, it's got the hacker girl from the latest Fast and Furious movies in it, and the basic safe cracker from Army of the Dead in it. So it is a prequel. And we're also getting a sequel. So it's just crazy how we just got Army of the Dead, and then the prequel will be out before the end of the year as well. I think Jake might be getting in contact with me. He lost power, and he's trying to set it all up. So we'll probably see him on here in a little bit.
awesome.
Hopefully, if things turn
Pan
out
out.
good. He's trying to reset his modem, but yeah,
Okay.
I'm loving, like, I just think, all these big movies on the streaming sites, from that to, I just watched the Tomorrow War on Amazon. That movie was like way better than I expected it to be. So I have high hopes. Same with Army of the Dead, and I have high hopes that Army of Thieves will continue that trend because the trailer actually looks really good. moving on. Sorry.
I haven't seen the trailer yet, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
A trailer that did drop today, though, like a couple hours ago, Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh
We've
yeah.
been waiting for
Okay.
this trailer. All we've had is like the teaser so far, and it's been a hot minute since we've heard anything about this movie, and got me a little excited. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Do you think it'll be better than the Ghostbusters movie with the all female cast?
That was not a good movie. I put
Of course it will. That is
that
universally hated by almost everybody in existence. So
I don't even remember what was the name of that movie. Was it just Ghostbusters?
what if it was
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters Revelation? Since that everything seems to be Revelation.
I don't know. I don't even remember the name of that movie. That's the
Who
point.
cares?
But I put that
Who
movie in like
cares?
the Spider-Man 3 and Batman and
No,
Robin and
I'd
that
rather
echelon
watch
of
Spider-Man
movies.
3 and Batman and Robin. Sorry.
But for me, I just putting it in the same category of movies as like
Oh yeah. I see what you're
if
saying.
it comes on and I'm in the mood not to change it off the channel, on channel, mind you, I'm not gonna go on my way to watch it, then I'll leave it on.
Speaking of movies like that, I tried to watch Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds for the first time yesterday. Got about halfway through. I was like, this isn't as bad as I thought. It's
The only
still bad.
redeeming thing in there is Sinestro, to be completely honest.
Well, I'm trying to think what else did I like about the movie. Not much. I mean, it has a great
That's
cast list, but in
yeah.
practice, they're not doing much.
Yeah, the cast list was completely
Yeah,
awesome, and they had, I
I
think,
got
some
Tim
really good
Robbins
characters.
from
Uh,
that Morgan Freeman movie where he breaks out of prison. What's it called?
Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, Tim Robbins from that. I was like, what the heck is this guy doing in here?
And
So
then something else that creeped across my news feeds was yesterday. Josh Brolin is supposedly coming back to the MCU as two characters, and those two characters would only be Cable and Thanos.
um, that reminds me too, not to butt into your news corner, but there's also rumors going around that we're going to see a baby Thanos in the Eternals
There's a very
because
good chance
one of
that
his
Thanos is still
parents
involved.
is an Eternal apparently.
Hmm.
So I didn't
Yep.
know that. I just YouTube, told me stuff. Anyway, so
So there's a very
anything
good
else?
chance that Josh Brolin might be maybe make a cameo that we don't know about in Eternals, or somewhere's down the line he might come back as Thanos with the whole multiverse saga that's
Yes.
happening.
What if
So
they
there's a very good
teamed up
chance.
with Thanos to fight Kang, and he has
The
like this
enemy of my
redemption
enemy
arc?
is my friend.
I would love that.
That'd be very
Oh
fun.
my god, I would like him
And
and
then
Loki
the
have to work together or something
and then
like.
the other fact, of it said coming back as two characters, so he would be as Cable as well once they introduce Deadpool into the MCU, which is going to be confirmed because we know Deadpool 3 is happening. Disney owns Fox. They're not going to leave that in their own Fox verse. So
Mhm.
those are just rumors, though. But at the same time, they seem pretty creditable.
You remember when there was supposed to be an X Force movie?
I do.
Anyway, so how is anything else for the news, Lucas?
Not that I can think of off the top of my
All right.
head.
Well, I was going to ask you and Jake, but since Jake's not here, before I have no knowledge of He-Man prior to this show and Masters of the Universe. I did not grow up with this show. In fact, I didn't get to watch a lot of cartoons growing up that were along this line. Like everything I watched, like with my stepsisters, it was all like Disney, Nickelodeon. Not a lot of like Fox Kids. This was probably one of those Saturday morning Fox Kids kind of things.
This
Maybe
was on Cartoon Network.
okay. So
There was
Mattel
Cartoon
and Cartoon
Network, yeah.
Network. Okay. So, well, I mean, we just didn't get to watch it when I was young like that. I mean, I don't know, but I will say the only reason I was excited for this was because I knew Kevin Smith, aka Silent Bob, who is a very multi-creative director. He's directed like romantic comedies to just comedies, like nerdy comedies, and he's also done horror movies. A couple of them really good, and he's also done. Apparently, he's done a couple cartoons, but this was like his first like big adaptation. Like he's never really adapted anything from anybody else's source material, and so he's always hesitated to do that. But Mattel asked him, and he's a huge fan of He-Man, and so I was inspired by that to watch the show and not knowing anything about it. But Lucas, what is your experience prior to this show with He-Man?
So I grew up loving cartoons. I grew up watching Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, the Hanna Barbera, cartoons, et cetera, like older cartoons. And then as I got older, I realized modern day stuff existed because my family basically exposed me to all the older stuff, not much of the modern day stuff. Plus, we didn't have cable, so I kind of just got what was on like PBS, Fox, and like in this WB at the time, which is now CW. So I didn't get to experience too much new stuff. So I watched a good portion of the '80s He-Man. I haven't watched all the episodes. I'm not a super fan. I am a fan, but I'm not a super fan. I do know a little bit about them. I do have like somewhat of a knowledge. I know like all 80s cartoons. Majority of them came because of a toy line. Uh, Masters of the Universe, He-Man, the Masters of the Universe was created because of the He-Man toy line, and they were like, "Hey, let's help sell these toys to little kids." Uh, the lore of He-Man is kind of like all over the place. When the toys came out, they were given each like a little one-page like comic book panel explaining the lore of the character,
Right.
and a lot of that lore didn't follow in the '80s show because the lore was a lot more like action packed and like darker, quote unquote, for that time than the '80s cartoon, which the '80s cartoon is more lighthearted. Like Skeletor does something like mischievous, and Adam turns into He-Man and solves the problem.
And you describe the original show as a procedural kind of cartoon
Mm-hmm.
where every episode is its own thing. There's not really there might be a couple like mini sagas, but there's not like this overarching
Exactly.
story that begins at the first episode and ends with the last episode. So that
Exactly.
is the opposite with this show. The show is very serialized with each. It's only 5 episodes.
Exactly.
So this is, I mean, it's crazy how you can have such a good show create this much buzz when you only release 5 20-minute episodes of a cartoon. So apparently there is a big He-Man fan base because
Well, yeah, there was also the 2002 remake of He-Man.
yeah, I didn't know
Well,
anything
there's
about that.
also another one. I think it came out in either the late '80s or the early '90s. It was like a continuation of the original '80s show. I don't have any knowledge of that because I never watched that one. I just know it exists, and I know some of the character designs are very interesting and very like early '90s, like metal and pockets and all kinds of fun stuff. But the He-Man show I grew up with, where I got almost all my knowledge from, was the 2002 remake. It had amazing action. It had a great character story. It had great like depth of like character building. Like these arcs that kept going on and on and on. Like it was a good cohesive story, but it was completely
Okay.
new. Um, and it got canceled a little bit way too early, in my opinion. It suffered from most things, like how Young Justice got canceled, and the 2011 Thundercats remake as well
Uh,
got canceled way too early.
yeah.
This makes me think the animation style is somewhat similar to the 2002.
Is it?
It's that like American, it's like high quality American westernized animation.
Hmm.
Um, but this story, He-Man Revelations, is basically a continuation of the original '80s story. So like all those episodes compiled together, and then going into Revelations, it's basically picking up right where that story was going on.
Huh.
The battle between He-Man and Skeletor and the forces of Grayskull versus the forces of Snake Mountain.
Yeah. And this is a very bingeable series, so you can, to me it felt like an hour and 40-minute movie. But before we move on, I do want to tell you about Jake's Designs RW.com. We have this is our partner Jake's website. You can get all kinds of clothing, artwork. We got both me Coyote and Grizzly, you want to go up to that? I'll show you on my shirt. We got Pretentious Pop Culture T-shirts now. You guys, you can buy if you want to really support us. You can do that. They have little QR codes, links to our YouTube channel and stuff. So it's really cool. We got the Marvel tennis shoes line out. I guess they're not tennis shoes; they're just shoes. I have the Deadpool ones incoming. We got um, Lucas is displaying the Vel Classics. It's Captain Marvel and themed shoes. Jake is also working on DC themed shoes. So we should be getting like some Batman and Superman and etc. Inspired designs for shoes. They look great. They're really comfy. This shirt is really comfy and it shipped very quickly. I put the order in on Friday. I got it Monday. So Lucas, uh, like he's got his shirt too, and I'm really happy about that. It really makes us feel a little bit more official. As you can see, you got uh, bikini wear as well, like swimwear. We got lounge wear. We got athletic gear. And if you go to the website when you're checking out, you use the promo code POPCULT, you can get 10% off your order and free shipping all the time, regardless of the promo code. That is POPCULT, all caps. Back to the stream. So we talked about our prior knowledge of He-Man. I I'm gonna go first because I know Lucas probably has a lot more to say about this one. This is his like lane here. He loves animated stuff, and I do too. But I my favorite thing when I'm watching something is like camera work. So it becomes that's kind of where we have our own separate lanes. But like this show, it's not just the animation. Like there's like when Lucas was talking about better quality American animation. Typically, I fall in love with anime when I was 18, and for a long time that was like all I wanted to watch. There was like 2 or 3 years where I was just anime because they have this thing that they do where they incorporate with the 2D, 3D special effects, but they also will oftentimes have hand painted backdrops. This show, for an American show, there are
It's
numerous,
very
not
Disney.
all the
That's
time.
very Disney. Like to have the hand painted backdrops. That was
Well,
such
Disney
like
is,
Disney animated. That was
yeah.
a pioneer of it. Like making how like beautiful and how
Hmm.
like gorgeous those type of backdrops were.
But you're talking about Disney movies because Disney didn't have cartoon shows like this. I mean, DuckTales and such, but um, for the most part, it was like movies with their hand drawn, like just matte paintings with lots of detail. This show does two of those things. It does have a lot of times, not all the time, but there will be a matte painting in the background, especially towards the beginning of the show, where you'll see Castle Grayskull in the background, and it'll be painted. It won't be a 3D, um, like model just sitting there with 3D magic effects. So you see like fireworks, magic sparkles, for lack of better words. You see bubbles; those are all CGI effects incorporated into the 2D. But the 2D, there's actually depth to their faces. So normally when American cartoons do three-dimensional depth and shadowing, it looks pretty bad, like in my opinion. Like not to dog on like Batman the animated series, but a lot of from that to like the Justice League or a lot of the DC cartoons or a lot of the Marvel cartoons or just like, SpongeBob and such. The 3D doesn't look very detailed. It's very 2D the whole time. This one, when you see Tila's face, her hair has depth. Looks like it's actually hanging off her head. When she turns her head, it feels like 3D. They animated it very well, so I'm impressed with that. Now, I'm sure Lucas will delve way further into the animation because he's more of the animation guy. But the music was also like all the time. Like there might be like 2 minutes at a time where there's not music, but for the most part, it's just constant music from Bear McCreary, who is of course famous from like shows like Battlestar Galactica's music and Walking Dead's music. He's done a few other projects as well, a couple of video games, but there's not a lot of recognizable themes yet because we only do have 5 episodes, but the way the music is just constantly happening makes you feel even more like you're in this fantasy world. Um, and the last thing I'll talk about, I'll talk. The plot was really good, and
I
we're
just
gonna
wanted to.
address.
Oh, sorry, I was looking for it. This is a picture of what you were saying, Castle
Yes,
Grayskull, and how the animation of the background looks.
yeah.
Like
So
that
I
looks
think this
amazing.
one it's 3D animation, but the castle itself is hand drawn.
Yeah.
It and scanned in because the door does open in a very
Mhm.
computer generated effect, but it's actually super detailed. It looks like someone went on there and brushed and stuff. The clouds definitely do look in this situation like a 3D effect, but there are other times, and it just depends on where they're at in the show. Like when they're on the water, there's definitely no hand drawn background when they're in this ocean, but there are a lot of scenes like that. And I want to talk about the plot. We will discuss in a little bit how it triggered a lot of He-Man fans, but I really enjoyed it. I thought the characters were a lot of them, have their sort of respective arcs, and even like characters you wouldn't think would have relevance actually do have relevance, and most of the characters in the thanks, Jake. Um, most of the characters have um, some relevance to them. There's like a couple that don't really get their time to shine, but for the most part, the main squad has their moment. And I've talked a little bit too long, so I'm gonna let Lucas take over. But I do want to like roll through the cast afterwards because just your initial thoughts.
Um, really good. Uh, the only clunkiness of the animation is one or two of the fight scenes. It was very the the frame rate was a little lower than I expected for like a
You talking about
Netflix
with
show.
Tila and the spear,
Yeah,
where
just a
she
little
twirls
bit.
the spear,
Hmm.
but it's like, bonk.
Yeah, there's a couple things with like the frame rate that like
Yeah,
I noticed, but it doesn't deter from the show. Very, very well, very clean.
right.
Like just was talking about like the faces, how they show like the depth of the faces. Really good with shadow work on the
Hmm.
characters, showing like their muscles because everyone in Eternia basically has muscles, whether you're female, whether you're a
Except
male,
for Adam,
whether you're
apparently.
yeah, that's one thing I like actually is I was talking to Justin off stream the other day about how Prince Adam in the 80s just has like a Clark Kent effect almost because Prince Adam's physical structure is the same as He-Man's physical structure, whereas Adam in the 2002 show and then Adam in Revelations, you isn't like a Clark Kent factor. The only thing that's similar is like the hair, but even then, like you could still have blonde, long hair within a world of like medieval inspired like beings, but you couldn't really tell the two were the same. Whereas before, all Adam had to do was like take off his pink shirt and he looks like He-Man. So I like that. I like them showing that how Tila doesn't know who Adam is because he doesn't look like Adam in He-Man. Uh, I like what they. Speaking of that, I do like how they did things with Tila. I know that's a hot topic. I'm.
Yeah, people are saying, "Oh, it's so woke."
I don't. I'm not thinking of it as that. I'm thinking of this as a continuation of a story, not a like doing this because of what's relevant now. It's just a good continuation of a story. Uh, Script was really good. There was some dialogue that I really liked, some really good exchanges. I liked how they stuck in He-Man's cheesy I'm a teenager one-liners
Oh
when
my
they showed
god,
flashbacks.
the best line is when he's helping someone out, and they're like, or Orca's like, "Does anybody have the power to help me out of this?" And he goes, "I have the power," which is his
Yeah,
is the line, but he just says it so cheekily, and it's like the first time we hear the line in the show. So it was just like, I don't know anything about He-Man, but I do know that quote, and it still got me. It still got me. Corny as hell, but
I like how there's some characters in it that were basically like throwaways or one note characters within the original like media, and they used them again shows dedication to the craft of what the characters and what the story is. Uh, there's some effects that I really liked. There's a scene where they go down to something called Subternia, which is basically hell for Eternians, and they're fighting a character called Scareglow. I didn't know who Scareglow was, so that was a new character for me. I really liked his animation. It reminded me of Blight from Batman Beyond. And I liked what he did with like the clouds and the his abilities. I really enjoyed the spectacle of animation that came from that whole character. As story plot, I really like the story plot. I think it was really good. I know we might get some backlash for it because me and you both like this, but
Right, and we're I
I am
don't think
defending
you
the
and
show.
me, you and I, like, based on what we're saying, we're not He-Man stans, like, from the original. So, I imagine if this actually got tons of views from He-Man fans, it would be all about, "How dare you? You don't have the right." And a lot of them are saying, like, it's The Last Jedi kind of version of how it's breaking their expectations for no reason in the
Hmm.
new show. Um Which I imagine if I met someone who got into Star Wars first with The Last Jedi, I'd be like, "Wow, you don't know nothing." But from what I've heard, the original He-Man is not a chef's kiss, like, critically acclaimed story that is
Yeah,
being told with these characters.
a
So,
good a good example of an 80s cartoon that has a decent story as well as good animation and good nostalgic factor is Thundercats. There's a there's little miniature arcs and you see characters progress throughout the show. He-Man's just whimsical nonsense from Skeletor. Here, He-Man deals with it. That's all it is, all the time, 90% of the time.
alright.
But when it comes to this show, it's really good, guys. It's really good. You don't look past what everyone's saying about it as a hater and like actually give it a try.
Yeah, and I recommend, like, watching it like a movie because the episodes aren't that long. There's only 5 of them. And if you binge it, it really like it
It
has
feels like a
a
movie.
pacing from episode to episode that feels like you're watching a movie. And it's a good animated movie, basically. I know it's 5 episodes, but it's just a good animated movie where they go from set to set to set, have story arcs, and there's a cliffhanger ending at the end, which we haven't really spoiled anything yet.
Yeah, I like
Which
that.
we probably should have, thrown out there. But um, so Lucas, you love it. You love it. So
I do.
I think we both love it. I think Lucas, obviously, he's the animation guy. His hype level. But I just with anime like Lucas has really been wanting me to watch Castlevania. Castlevania is not my kind of jam. I like a lot of color. I like a lot of characters. And Castlevania is not really a character show in the first 4 episodes.
Okay.
It is very you know, this is the chaos that's going on, but I have no reason to care about the chaos because I don't know any of these characters very well. I'm just starting to know them. Now, granted, I did finish the 4th episode, and it was good. But this show, in the first 5 minutes, you're introduced to like 7 or 8 characters that you're going to be with, and you know, there's quirkiness about them. They're very unique looking. They've all sound different, and as someone who loves characters, that's like the number one important thing of the plot. You could have the worst plot in the world, but have the best characters. You still have somewhat of a fun time. Um, and that's what this show has. It's got great characters. The plot is, every there's a lot of times in this show where the characters will get like disabled, and the bad guys got the upper hand. And I think 3 times it happens where another character that you haven't seen yet or haven't seen in a while shows up and just right at the right time and saves them. And it's just like the first time it happens is cool. The second time it happens is like this just happened. This just happened. Do it again. Doing it again. It happened 5 minutes ago. You're doing it again. And then it happens the third time and you're like, I guess this is He Man. But um it certainly makes the impact of that happening a lot lower, but the characters are well rounded. there is good journeys through the show. Um, and from a guy who knows not too much about Prince Adam, after watching this show, I still don't know too much about Prince Adam. But I am wondering, Lucas, is this before? Is the show take place before or after he gets like his own castle, but like the old woman curses him, and so all his furniture all his servants turn into furniture and start talking like they're talking furniture, and he has to get Emma Watson to come like break the curse. Is this like does that happen? That happened like before, or
I
does it?
think I think
We
that's a
gotta wait.
variant. I think it's a
Okay,
variant.
that's a variant of Prince Adam. Okay, just just wondering how we got from Grayskull to what Beauty and the Beast castle. Anyway, so
Renaissance French Renaissance.
French Renaissance. That is France Turnia. Anyway, so this is the point of the show where okay, I've been talking a lot, but let's go ahead before we start really talking about the plot. Um, we're just gonna say it. Tila, Sarah Michelle Gellar. You might know her from Buffy. She voices Tila, who is like He-Man's best friend, um, but also, you know, another warrior. She's a female warrior. We got my favorite character, Lena Headey from Game of Thrones. She plays Cersei Lannister. She plays Evil Lynn. She's kind of like the Vegeta of this story, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Of course, Mark Hamill, stamp of approval, him playing Skeletor, which at first, when I first watched this, I was like, it just sounds like his Joker. But then watching it a second time, I was able to pick up the subtle differences. And then I watched the original Scary. I'm not doing that today. But we're doing or excuse me, I watched the original Skeletor, and he actually sounds bad. He doesn't sound good at all. So
He-Man.
yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's not scary at all. It's laughable. Liam Cunningham.
It's he suffered the original Skeletor suffered from the same thing the original Cobra Commander did in G.I. Joe. Like he was a laughable like main villain. Whereas like other characters, like say take Thundercats and Transformers, you had Thundercats was Mumra the Unliving,
Right.
who was terrifying, and Transformers had Megatron, who is a diabolical dictator and a terrifying individual.
Yeah, and Frank Welker back in the day was just everybody. Like he was just everything, and he voiced Megatron. So anyway, tangent. Liam Cunningham, he's Davos from Game of Thrones, one of my favorite characters. He plays Man at Arms, who I don't know what's his. Is that just his name? Does he have a last name like Tila's dad?
Dorian, wasn't it? It's Dorian, right? No, Dorian. Yeah,
I don't
Dorian.
know.
Something.
They don't say his
Sorry,
name a lot.
I was never really a
Um,
Man of Arms fan. I mean, I like
I
Man at
like him in
Arms.
this.
I
I
like
like him in
Man at
this.
Arms is when he's being Man at Arms, doing Man of Arms things, like literally the weapons master for King Randor.
Right. We got Justin Long, Roboto, who
I didn't pick
Justin
up on
Long.
that. That's fun.
Yeah, I didn't either because he's using the voice modifier, and I just didn't know he was in the show. Justin Long, of course, from a lot of like comedy movies. He's worked with Kevin Smith on Tusk before, the horror movie about the walrus. We got Kevin Conroy makes an appearance as Merman, so we got both Batman and Joker from the animated series in this.
Which is funny because Kevin Smith is also if he says he's a super fan of He-Man, he's a mega fan for Batman.
You're right. And he loves everything comics. Like he loves everything we love, and that's why I love him so much. Of course, we got Jason Mewes from Jay and Jay and Silent Bob plays Stinkor, who's one of those characters Lucas talked about that did not really get any screen time in, the original show, but actually is in this one. Um, I don't know who Marlena is. Is that Adam's mom, Queen Marlena? Because that's Alicia Silverstone.
Yes. That is.
So Batgirl from Batman and Robin
Or
is
the main
Adam.
character. Sorry, the main character from Clueless. That's what I
Okay.
remember as.
Okay. uh, obviously, some saltiness for George Clooney and Joel Schumacher there. So we got Phil Lamar, who is in like every cartoon ever as Hero, and um, Kevin Smith's daughter plays Eileen. I don't know who that is. Harley Quinn Smith is his daughter. And then the Candyman, Tony Todd, plays Scareglow.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
realize that.
I knew you were gonna get a kick out of that.
That's awesome.
Yep, yep. So that's
Oh
it for the
man,
cast.
that makes
So
so much
so
sense that he's playing a character like that though, because the
yes,
Candyman's all about like fear and like your desires and wants. Oh man, that's cool. That's cool.
yeah,
Good job, Kevin Smith.
yeah. So like he's the care and respect he's given this show for the quality of it by picking Bear McCreary in this cast, plus the people who are animating it, working with Netflix with a typically bigger budget than a lot of animated stuff. I like you can't do what the people have done to his Rotten Tomatoes score, where you just in 5 episodes completely turn against this show. And so this is where we're gonna, in order to talk about the review bombing, we're gonna probably need to spoil some stuff that happens.
Yeah, exactly. But
So
I
this
just
is
want to touch on I am with Justin on Evelyn as my favorite character so far. For the characters they've introduced, I will say it's made me care about Tila. Tila was a good way to move a plot forward with the type of story he's trying to tell, especially since she was such a close friend of Adam's throughout the whole knowledge of He-Man, like all lineage of He-Man, and never knew that He-Man and Adam were the same character, were one and the same. So the fact that she was the driving point for this show made a lot of sense in a narrative standpoint. So, but Evelyn's probably the best well-made character, especially since all of us know Evelyn is this like diabolical, like Justin said Vegito, but I also attune her to Starscream as well from Megatron. Like she's the right hand man of woman of Skeletor.
yeah.
Like doing the diabolical deeds of the headmaster, even though like his deeds probably are more mischievous while hers are more evil. So, but
Evil in.
but the fact that they showed that this character has depth, that she wasn't always evil, as she says, as a quote from the show, she's like, evil wasn't always in the name. So I want to see more of this character. I want to see how they grow. I also want to see how Tila grows now, knowing what she knows and what's happening at the end of the season, at the end of part 1.
All right, so this is full spoilers at this point. So we get to Rotten Tomatoes, 90 something percent critic score, 30 something percent audience score. There's a lot of He-Man people because episode 1, spoilers, get out of here. He-Man dies,
He
or he gets
sacrifices.
sent to heaven.
So yeah, so there's this big. So in the beginning of the show, Skeletor tricks the sorceress into letting him into Grayskull by pretending he's He-Man with a bunch of like Snake Mountain cronies. Normal Skeletor, as watching it, I'm like, okay, so Skeletor is doing his normal, like, I'm Skeletor, here, let me try and get the Grayskull. But then all of a sudden you see like the forces of Snake Mountain attack Grayskull, and you see like the massive, they're like, Skeletor's not pulling any punches anymore. This man is full on assaulting Grayskull. So then we cut later, and then find out Skeletor finds out that there's something inside Grayskull. Skeletor always wanted Grayskull for its power, but we never knew why. But now we know that there's something inside Grayskull that is the power for all of magic within Eternia. And Skeletor wants that. He doesn't want Grayskull. He wants that. So then He-Man shows up, and Skeletor and He-Man have a great fight scene, by the way. There's one of the like the best visuals for me was when Skeletor summoned his own fist out of the Black Nebula and just punches at He-Man. That was awesome.
Very close quarters fighting too.
Exactly.
They're inside. Yeah.
So He-Man and Skeletor clash over this orb, and to stop the orb, He-Man has to reuse the power of Grayskull essentially to destroy everything, to basically nuclear bomb this orb, and essentially he dies. and Skeletor does too.
Yeah, and so from there we don't get a lot of He-Man. It really great storytelling because what ends up happening is he dies. Tila, who is with him, fights with him, known He-Man forever, like we said, finds out only after he dies by his mom revealing it to everybody that he was He-Man. This, not only this, but like dad lost his son. He didn't know. He goes into a frenzy, fires man at arms Liam
Not
Cunningham,
just fires him,
banishes
banishes
him. Yep.
him, and says, "If I ever see you again, or you do anything, you're executed." Basically, if you live, you're executed. This man was not playing around.
Right.
Randor did not care.
Right. And he's having this emotional frenzy, and you know he's the king is like, everybody lied to me about my son. You're gone. You're dead to me. So Tila didn't know, so he didn't like banish her immediately. But after seeing her dad banished, and then also having feelings about you know not everybody telling her about Adam, she felt left out. She's like, well, so she leaves, and so we get this breaking of the fellowship right at the beginning, which is phenomenal storytelling. Even if you are wanting that He-Man itch scratched, granted, we do get him saying the "I have the power" and using the sword, which got split in two. We find out, and the magic starts to die, but we get a little bit of that itch scratch. We get a little bit of our Skeletor itch scratch if we're fans. Like, I'm not me; I can care less about it until this show. Um, Having the show start from this period to then a time jump later, what would the world be like without
Without He-Man.
He-Man? And Tila doesn't respect He-Man's legacy because she felt burned by him. She goes off and is a mercenary. So we start these characters at a low place so we can build them back up over the course of 5 episodes. We have this, invigoration, so that like you get to be introduced to these characters at a different time in their journey, so you can see them, all the consequences of what's come before. And I love that because we go from there to Tila having to be responsible. She's struggling with, do I want to be responsible or not? And of course she does because she's the hero, and it's all about this badass team building right in the first 2 episodes where you're like,
Yes.
I guess we got to work with our enemy Evil Lynn now. And you're like, what? You got some bad guy, good guys here, and they're like, we need someone to forge the sword. Who's gonna do it? Man of arms. So they go back to it's just this like, really badass. Like, let's go. Let's get the
Since
team
we're
together to
discussing
fix.
the putting together of the team, right? I don't remember Tila's friend's name, and I don't know if that's a bad thing or not because I didn't care about her. I didn't care about her. I know she's just there to add a new character into the mix of all these, nostalgia-driven characters.
She's the most like mundane. That's probably why, because she's supposed to be the audience's like
new wave. So if you're
reaction to everything going
Yeah.
on, like we can kind of imprint on her and her perspective by she's the less powerful.
Seeing all these myths and legends of
Yes.
Eternia unfold, where all these people, and Tila's just like, I've seen it all before. This is nothing new.
Yeah.
And
New
then you're
blood.
talking about the itch of He-Man being scratched. They have a good handful of flashbacks to help drive the story forward as well with He-Man.
That's not
and
enough
Tila.
for these review bombing stands of He-Man. They have flashbacks.
Those flashbacks really encompass what the older 80s driven He-Man was, though. Like, there's cheesy He-Man lines. There's the Merman and Skeletor team up where it's like we have two of the more evil characters within the franchise
Batman and Joe
have to team up to take on He-Man. Like, I thought that was really cool. Like, I understand I understand. I don't understand the hate. Sorry, that this show is getting. I don't. I really don't.
Well, as the lovely person commented on our Twitter, he said it was false advertisement, which to me, it's like,
Because
how could you possibly know what the show is altogether in 5 episodes when, like, and then let's bring it back 80s, right? 80s shows, 80s kids shows. You're going to capture the spirit of 80s cartoons. There was a movie that came out in the 80s with another property that was made to sell toys. You know, what was that movie called?
Ninja Turtles.
No,
Oh,
Transformers.
Ninja Turtles.
So, Transformers, the movie,
Yeah.
right at the beginning, spoilers for this movie, Optimus Prime dies.
Guys,
He
the
died.
main hero, everyone's like guiding light, dead as a doornail.
And they love that movie. That was one of everybody's favorite movies. You talk with like old school Transformer fans, they don't like the new ones. You ask them what their favorite Transformers movie is,
It's
they go
a
point at
Transformer the movie.
this 80s cartoon where Optimus Prime bites the oil or dust or whatever, the scrap metal, right at the beginning.
The rust.
He bites the rust. Another one bites the rust. Thank you, Lucas. That's the word I was looking for. And the whole movie after that, I don't even think we get an Optimus Prime resurrection, do we?
I think it's in this show. I don't know.
But that's what I'm saying. You still have probably what amounts to the same amount of screen time where you don't see Optimus at all, even in flashbacks. This show, we get flashbacks of He-Man. We get, you know, this is like when you watch those like great what if Spider-Man stopped being Spider-Man, and you get to watch the consequences of all the environment happening without him. This is like what if He-Man wasn't around? The world is going to hell, you know, in a handbasket, and there's no magic. So they got all these stakes. They have actual stakes in this show. If they don't succeed, people will die. The world will fall, and it's not a like in your face like we got to fix everything. The world's going
And
to
they
know
already
it's just,
show the starting of the stakes as well because the techno cult's rising. Technology is rising to power.
yeah.
With through Triclops, Whiplash, and Trapjaw.
Mm-hmm.
Like so that the scene this you're talking about stakes, you're seeing the stakes right
And the
there.
main character dies. That's the greatest way to raise the stakes to where you're like you're not sure what's going to happen. And granted,
Exactly.
that's not what like. I don't want necessarily the main character to die. Like I do want to see
The
Prince
struggle.
Adam's, journey. I want to see him as a character and get to know him because he is the legendary He-Man. We need that. I don't disagree with the people review bombing it for that reason, but this is only 5 episodes.
The thing I was
It's
saying
only
they were getting angry about is about Kevin Smith supposedly lying. Like a trending hashtag right now is Kevin Smith's a lie. Kevin Smith lying
or something.
Lies.
And
exactly.
we just promoted that on our show. So.
the fact that they're saying he lies. Okay, so as a person who wants to keep a secret about a show, about my plot, of course I'm going to say someone's lying. Like I'm not going to tell you the plot of my show if it got leaked. Like I'm going to tell you you're lying. I'm not going to give you that. I want you to watch my content. I want you to see what I have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to know everything going into it. And that's the world we live in right now is everyone wants to know everything.
Yeah, and he's taken risks too by having like it's not like the Last Jedi risk because like imagine we had the Last Jedi, I hate to pivot to Star Wars talk, but like Luke Skywalker, you never get to see Luke be the Luke that he was in Return of the Jedi and where he ended up after that. We never get to see that awesome Luke. We don't start Last Jedi off with a flashback of him doing awesome lightsaber stuff. We don't get subsequent flashbacks of younger Luke doing all that brought him to this point. But at the same time, because we get all that in this show, it's still taking a risk on having him killed off. And of course, this is a cartoon. It's a kid's cartoon. There's nothing really adult about this show other than like, theming. There's not like this isn't an R-rated show.
It's not. It's PG-13 for sure. Right. And there is blood. There is blood.
Yeah, it's just not very graphic. It's not like Invincible.
No, it's not invincible level I wouldn't want it to be an
Um,
invincible level
no. We're
graphics,
not
but
talking
I
about.
like the fact of
Yeah,
like there's a scene during when they first show the techno cult that now runs Snake Mountain because Skeletor is gone. Triclops has decided that technology is where the movement is. That's what's being ran, and there's something called the motherboard, and it's like leaking out of this statue. And if you drink it, you become like a cyborg. Interesting. It's like
really cool
magic meets
rules of
technology.
this world. Yeah,
There,
and that's
like, physics don't make sense in Eternia, by the way. So
and that's the other thing. Speaking of physics, these characters, like I always joke around about like Clone Wars. They feel like they have no weight to them. These characters always look like they have weight. Whenever they put in like get into fighting stance, they look like you know
they look
they can really
strong.
mess you up. Yeah, and and that's the cool thing too is like tons of different character designs. Like right from the beginning, we get this guy who's in a robe and or like a shawl, and he takes the shawl off. His arms are disconnected, but he has these metal tendrils that pop out of his arms. So he's like a cyborg to grab his arms and pop them back into place. And so it's just like it's not only
Yeah.
the super fantasy Lord of the Rings magic swords and stuff. We also get robots, we get cyborgs, we get cyberpunk esque um, environments with synth uh, computerized sounding soundtrack in the background. So
So
anyway,
that was something I wanted to say too. Is like remember how I said throwaway characters? That He-Man robot was basically, I think, Kevin Smith's version of Faker. Faker is a manuscripted
that's
a
what he calls him.
He-Man. Yeah, but that's his name is Faker.
Yeah, he says he's more of a faker.
I know, but like the actual character is Faker. That's his name. So it was
um,
really they're just going back to it. Like Kevin Smith knew what he was doing. He knows what he's doing. Leave Kevin Smith alone.
no, don't leave him alone. Go thank him. Go give him a hug. Go give him praise. You know what are you doing?
like
This is who you want in charge of your childhood thing. Y'all are crazy. I mean, I don't. Anyway, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But let's talk about. So so we get the first half of the show is like building the team up. And it's all about the adventures. Then it becomes the we got to get the sword back together plot, which they go to Subternia to fight Scareglow,
Scareglow.
who
Cool character. Really cool character.
and this episode because it focuses on such a one story beat. I'm not like don't take me this the wrong way. This episode feels like a filler episode, but in the best way because it doesn't further the plot too much, but it is a very long episode, or it takes a very long time to deal with. It's like playing a Zelda game. This is the first temple.
It
This
essentially
is
takes
like
2 episodes to deal with Scareglow.
no,
Hmm?
no,
Or am I just not remembering that
you're not
there was
remembering because no. So that's like episode 4, I think. So anyway, so they get to Subternia. The previous episode, they're journeying to Subternia,
okay, that's where
and
okay,
then
that's
they
where
end up
my
in Subternia. It's a full
okay.
episode, but it's
True.
just
Okay.
they're there, and they're trying to get to the sword, and it's all about fear. And so we have this. It's like the filler episode, but it's a lot of character growth, a lot of character development. This is where we really start to see the layers of Evelyn peel back, where she has this camaraderie with Orko, who has a probably I
Rest in
don't know
peace,
if
Orko. Rest in
I don't
peace, Orko, man.
I don't know. Does he have that much backstory in the cartoon? Do you remember, or is this
He's
like
a
the first
troll.
time?
He's a Trollian, and they're basically super magical beings. They're
No. I'm
interdimensional
asking like
lycans.
with his like story as far as like his parents, how he got his name. Was that all talked about?
Mm-mm. No,
So this is we
he was
learned
just
that
the comedic
Orko.
relief with Cringer in the original story. He was a blundering mage
um,
that can never get anything right.
so this is like that. Like we learned that
He was
Orko
like a
is
more funny
because he was
Scrappy
supposed
Doo.
to be Oracle, but he always failed at everything. So right in a span of 15 minutes, we get this build up to a great sacrifice moment where Evil Lynn, of all people, helps him overcome his insecurities that his parents imprinted on him by, he's got these impossible standards, and Evelyn's like, you don't have to live up to anybody but yourself, and he just was like, yeah, okay, I can do this, and we get the whole Tila character development here where she has to face He-Man because she's afraid that um she's never gonna be He-Man, and like he was all he never respected her, and she's the afterthought, she's not important, and she has this great character development growth, what have you, where she overcomes that and fights Scareglow, but ultimately it is Orko who stops Scareglow sacrificing himself. Now,
Rest in
granted,
peace, Orko, man.
in 4 episodes up to this point, there's not a lot of time to really attach to Orko. So for having like 15 minutes of him really being a character, for them to really grow him, and then they make the sacrifice play, it still created a response, an emotional response in me. It didn't make me cry, but I was very impressed by how touching that was. And that's like where we get right back into the A plot where Adam, they go to heaven. Adam's in heaven. You
Preternia.
know, Preternia. Well, yes, exactly, Preternia. And so this is, probably the
And
episode where
I more or less see it as like the heaven for heroes, like the kingdom for
Valhalla,
heroes,
yeah,
Valhalla essentially for them, because
because they
like
do Valhalla stuff. They have a wild hunt.
yeah, they touch on it very, very roughly too, because come to find out, we find out Grayskull is there, the first one to ever wield the power sword, and he says, if you leave Preternia, you can never return.
Right.
So that means if a mortal dies, then where you still go to Subternia no matter what, but there might be another place for regular people to go afterwards in this universe.
Um, and so like again, they're here. They're only here because they need the other half of the sword so they can reforge it. Otherwise, magic will die in Eternia, and magic is linked to life itself, so life will die as well. The planet will die essentially. I don't like the fact Adam's entrance just feels a little like it doesn't feel big enough for what it means to the story. He just kind of is there. He's like, "Hey, I'm Adam. What's up?" You know, and there's a little bit of angry conflict between Tila and Adam, which I don't feel either. Her initial reaction is not earned, or her immediate recovery is not earned, because she responds to him not with joy but with anger of her unresolved issues with him in life, of like, oh, you didn't tell me anything, I didn't know, you never really
Yeah.
knew me, blah 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 blah. But then immediately he's just like, they're just back together as friends. Like, all they need is to fly around and hunt something for them to kind of which are
Because
those
Adam,
little
because
platforms are cool.
when he died, the way I see it is like when he died fighting Skeletor, he was He-Man. So she was angry at He-Man, essentially. She didn't have her best friend Adam that she grew up with for
Mhm.
years. She saw the man He-Man die. So when she got angry about him never telling her about He-Man, it made sense. So, but when she finally rebonded with Adam as Adam and Preternia, you could see like the reason why they acted that way is because she had her friend back, her
Well,
like
when I
best
say
friend,
it's
her
not earned,
lifelong friend.
I just mean the turn for her in her viewing Adam happens in a span of 5 minutes.
Well,
You would
no,
want
because even before, like they're talking in the forest where Moss Man was like listening to them. That was after the Wild Hunt. That was after their conversation with Grayskull. Like she was still like, she's like, I'm still angry at you.
no, but so what I'm saying is these are 20-minute episodes,
Mm-hmm.
23-minute episodes. She sees Adam, blah blah blah. They have a conversation where she reveals that she's angry with him. We get a couple like, interstitial scenes, but in a span of 20 minutes you would want like me personally as a story like a consumer, I would want a longer period
Mm-hmm.
of time where Adam has to prove herself to her or really remind her. They for having to do it so quickly here, they do a pretty adequate job but it makes me like Tila a little less because it's like
Mm.
figure it out, Tila. Like where are we at? um, you're all over the place. And it also um the whole stakes. This is where the stakes kind of drop for me because they get to sub Praeternia, the heaven of Hollow, if you will, and the first thing Adam says is like, "You're stuck here, but I can get you out." And so it's like, well, we already figure they're getting out because the plot must continue. But if you want to build that tension and make it feel more dire, you don't want to
I
immediately tell
Yeah.
them that I can get you out. Like
Well, he
we're
said
gonna
more or less, he's like, I can maybe get you out through
yeah, but
Grayskull's
like
tower. But
say that
but then he didn't know. I don't think he knew Grayskull was going to allow them through because it is his tower. So it's basically Grayskull being like, "Oh, you can go,"
it
essentially.
would have been better if he'd have been like, I think you're stuck here. We're gonna have to really, we're gonna have to talk to Grayskull, see what he says, and then have Grayskull raise the stakes by going, you can leave, but blah 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 blah, and then like make something like tense
Mm.
because knowing and like even before they get there, he's just like, I have a plan. It's over there. We're gonna get you, and he's just so confident and cocky that you feel like they're getting out. They're fine.
Yeah.
They're
So
gonna get.
the thing for me with Adam as what he did towards the end was I feel like it would have made a bigger impact if he didn't go with them initially to Eternia.
And then showed
Granted,
up. Yeah,
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 yeah. While they were sitting there, while Skeletor returns, mind you, we're getting to the final episode right now. Just real quick, Skeletor returns. He imbued his body or essence inside of Evelyn's Chaos Staff, and then when the timer's right, he used the Havoc Staff
yeah.
to
They
come
do
back to
reforge the
existence.
sword, by the way, in
Exactly, the swords
Preternia.
come together. We
It's a
lose
fast
Roboto.
A plot. It's
Yeah,
they get
we also
they
lose
leave.
Roboto. He
Yeah,
dies.
he forging
Sad,
the sword.
super
Yeah.
sad. He felt human emotions too. So Man at Arms did what he wanted to do, create a life essentially
Is it
from
just
an AI.
me, or did that feel a little Rick and Morty, where he's like, I can feel, and then he immediately dies?
It did feel a little Rick and Morty. So essentially, Adam leaves with Tila and the Fellowship of the Power Sword. So when they meet up, yada yada, so on and so forth, they put it back together. They say, "Let's have the power back." I have the power, and then Frank. We see a stab through Adam before he turns into He-Man.
Mhm.
We see the Havoc staff, and we see Skeletor. We then see Skeletor laugh maniacally, says some Skeletor things, takes the power sword, holds the power sword to the sky, and Skeletor then goes, "I have the power."
Yes,
And then he becomes the master of the universe.
Skelegod is what Kevin Smith's calling him.
So essentially, I think the way Adam should have returned, though, I think he should have stayed on Paternia instead of leaving right away. I think it would have felt more for them to be like, so who's going to call down the power? Who's going to call down the power? Who's going to take on the mantle of Grayskull? And then you just see Adam reach out, grab the sword, and he's like, just goes like, I guess it's time for me to be back. Or
I
like
will
says
take
something
the
like,
ring to Mordor.
yeah, it's just been like he's like or says like it's me, it's always been me or something like that, and that's when he goes, I have the power, and then gets stabbed by Skeletor. Like we have that initial like, oh my god, he's back. Not like he's there, dodges a couple bullets from the outside sources because Triclops and his techno cult's also outside, like trying to break into Castle Grayskull. Like that whole scene, it was fun,
Missed opportunity. Yeah,
but the
because you have the
feeling.
really hype moments. Did I cut you off, or
No, I'm just
you
saying
have
that.
these really hype moments? So you have Thor showing up in Infinity War and turning the tide of the battle. You have the on your left moment at the end of Endgame. You have the, if you like it, I guess, the Rise of Skywalker. There's more of us, Poe. There's more of us. Same exact. It's all the cavalry showing up. It would have been cool too if there was like some actual consequences for having the power, having the sword. If it took a toll on you, if you have to sacrifice something, and Tila was about to make that sacrifice, and Adam showed up and be like, "No, I'm gonna keep you from having to do this. It's always been me," like Lucas said, and then we have the reverse cavalry has arrived here with the shocking Skeletor stabbing through the back
And
of,
Skeletor surviving.
and
This
so
basically Skeletor survived the whole time, guys. By the way, so mind you, He-Man died. Prince Adam died. Skeletor did not,
mhm,
and that was the biggest reveal for me of this whole show, because I also thought Skeletor was dead and he was in Subternia essentially, but nope, man's been sneaky all along.
right. So and this is of course Evelyn, who we've gone through this incredible journey of learning her backstory, learning her dimensions as a character, how she's not all bad, how she's really just out to, she's not necessarily selfish, but she's there. Maybe we're getting the hints that she's on Skeletor's side because she eventually wants to Starscreen him and take over, but not be so vicious. And so this is where we get like both the Vegeta and Starscream's comparisons, like Lucas said, where Vegeta is this bad guy who has this arc that is almost redeeming, but in a sense where we realize he's not, a complete bad guy. And then the Starscream, where as soon as Skeletor comes back, what does Evelyn do?
Jumps ship.
She's like, I was really starting to like you kids, and hops back on Team Skeletor, and it's crushing, but it creates this great cliffhanger tension that you're just really excited to see what happens next. And for anybody who thinks Adam's actually dead, he's not. He's going to be fine. And Kevin Smith has in the after show talk on Netflix, he says we didn't kill He-Man once, but now he's potentially dead twice. So him saying potentially, and then also addressing that the next part will be about Adam having to learn to contribute without the power of He-Man. I imagine they'll get out of this situation. He-Man will have like an episode of two or of recovery, and then come back and feel insignificant next to Tila, where he's dealing with this. I can't contribute anymore because I don't have the power per se, but I have to find a way to contribute because it's still my responsibility to do good. Having that whole Tony Stark, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't wear it
Or
moment.
how Bane
Yeah.
broke Batman in the comic books, and Batman had to learn how to become Batman again, or like
Which people love, but not here. These people make me so mad.
Yeah, the controversy has me feeling some kind of way, because I didn't get brought to my attention until you brought it to my attention. And now that I've paid a little bit more attention, to it, I'm like, y'all people are whack. Calm down.
Well, I've been listening to Kevin Smith on his podcast because in the Uber I have a lot of time to listen to podcasts. I've occasionally listened to Kevin Smith, and he's been really happy about He-Man or Masters of the Universe Revelation for a long time, and he's talked about how COVID impacted him. They were able to do the first episode with all the actors in a studio and a little bit of the second, but then they had to all go work from home, and so it really delayed the process. A lot of people had to set studios up in their houses, and this just the struggles of this show getting delayed and having finally come out. It just makes me mad for him that this guy who is not one of the wealthiest filmmakers, he's not like this, snooty billionaire. He's just this pothead, he's a vegan after his heart attack. He's almost died, and he's come back and he's able to do these things. It just sucks that like all these super toxic He-Man fans that are probably just mad because a woman is, in front row center, that they're just, throwing all this hate into the universe here. So I guess they'd be on
Well, I
Skeletor's
watched a
side.
review, and it compared this to Mad Max Fury Road. So Mad Max took second fiddle to Furiosa, or her
Yeah,
name Furiosa, right?
Furiosa.
Furiosa, yeah. So he's took sideline to Furiosa in that movie to me. And I'll say it again. This show is called Masters of the Universe, not He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. It's called Masters of the Universe. Are they going to get mad because Skeletor said he is the master of the universe? I just, you know what I'm saying? Like, people just need to calm down. Watch it for the good animated show that it is, the good story that it
It's
is,
got great writing.
and
It really does.
just enjoy it.
This is like one of the animated properties with the most talent behind it.
All right. So, Justin, let's go ahead and give our ratings of part 1.
I hate to rate part 1 because this is really the first arc in a longer story, but for what it does, if we're taking away like complete story goggles to give it an actual score, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. It was a master. It was perfect. I don't think it could have been any better. Like it really was. And again, I'm not the biggest animation fan, so I'm not like,
taking it apart detail
by
detail.
Well, I'm not like, when I say this is a 10 out of 10, I don't mean it's on the same level of like my favorite movie, Blade Runner 2049, which is like this masterpiece achievement. But for what animated story should be, the problems I have with it are very minor and they just feel like they fit. Like I already talked about, I think it's silly that these people get in, they'll get like restrained and then someone else just shows up randomly. It's hype. I get it though. I overlook that because it is not really a problem I have with the show. It's just something that feels less impactful each time it happens. But I was so shocked by how good this was, and I can't wait for more. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 for me as well. I don't binge shows. I don't. I'll watch maybe 1 or 2 episodes and then go on to something else or watch another show, watch a movie, go do something else. Also, because I have a home life, right? I binged this show. I turned it on and I didn't go to bed until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning one night on Friday. And I watched the whole show.
Well,
I just watched. Long. I know, but what I'm saying is like I gave up my time to watch basically this whole show. Animation quality, top notch. Like I said, there was a couple FPS like frame rate problems here and there with some of the fight scenes, but it's unless you're like being backed by like the House of Mouse, essentially,
it's very minor.
It's you're gonna have some flaws here and there especially with fight scenes. Fight scenes are very jerky. Fight scenes take a lot to like make sure everything's moving very fluidly. So I'm looking past that, 100% looking past that, because it doesn't take away from how beautifully these characters are designed. I love their designs. Yeah. I love seeing what happens to characters if in like a post-apocalyptic world, essentially, and that's what we're in is a post-apocalyptic Eternia. So
and I have to say, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
I really like the designs, like I was saying. Designs of characters were top notch. Voice acting beyond. Oh, thank you, Jake. Thank you. So yes, it looks 100% like Korra. Thank you, Jake. I didn't want to say that.
So we're all on board with this being a masterpiece. Okay.
Yeah. It definitely looks like a Legend of Korra. It's something I didn't bring up because I know Justin hasn't seen it, so I didn't want to make a comparison you didn't really understand. But
I've been struggling to watch Avatar for so long and just not liking it. Just not. There's just not enough, point A to point B plot going on. It feels like everything's filler. But of course, that's a lot of these animated shows. They start off with like procedural style filler, and then we get like, especially everybody talks about One Piece, where it's like season 52, it becomes a really serious story, and it's like But
yeah, voice acting, top notch. Character-driven story arcs, top notch. Making us care about characters. That literally just walked around whopping each other back in the 80s. Just amazing. Skeletor is threatening. He's threatening. He's not just some silly making laughs and cheesy one-liners. He's scary. And he's not even on this. He's all but like what? Less than 30 minutes of screen time? Terrifying.
Right.
Perfect. Superb. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Netflix,
and I gotta say, seeing this a second time for like my notes, I wasn't like watching all of it. I was skipping around a lot, but like it really cemented the idea. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, it's a cartoon, but this time it's like, yeah, this is actually like this is it. This is like the top bar you can get in a 5 episode part one of a series. Now again, it's rating of part one, so it's not like by the time the story is finished, it's gonna be like masterpiece at that point. There might be some horrible decisions made. Don't think there will, but we'll get to that later. And I just want to say, unless you got any more points to bring up, Lucas, Disney
No, man.
Grizzly.
I think we beat the
All right.
beat the
So,
everything out of it.
so don't listen to all the toxic masculinity fan base of all their testosterone flinging about how they want to see a half naked dude instead of a badass female. So watch the show. It's again, just binge it. It's like a movie. It's like an hour and 40 minutes to binge the whole thing. You're not gonna regret it if you like animated stuff. And just the lore is so fun, like combining all this magical stuff with all this technology stuff and all the inventive environments and technology and weapons. And there's like wrist guns, there's like rocket launchers, there's tank, like swirly tank things, like with like gears on them. I mean, everything is just so is hits you one after the other with creative design choices, and they all look great, they all work great, they all serve a purpose. Every character in this serves a purpose, and just go watch it. Now, please remember, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe. Pretentious Pop Culture on Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube with at pretentious_pop on Twitter. Subscribe to Adventures by Ables on YouTube and Instagram. In the Bat Loop, our partner, that's Alex. We have a lot of streams with him. If you haven't seen them already, you can check out our previous catalog. Lucas and Alex just did Luca in review. Check that out. And of course, In the Bat Loop on TikTok and YouTube, and Batsman 2Z's1T on Instagram. And of course, for shirts like this, other artwork, and clothing and shoes, jakesdesignsrw.com. I can't wait to do this again. I believe Suicide Squad will be coming up from James Gunn. The reboot we desperately needed. It looks great. Believe it comes out next week. We're gonna. Between then, we got what do we got? We got Jungle Cruise and
There's with
Free
possibly
Guy
and the Ghostbuster trailer.
and the Ghostbusters trailer. So if Lucas is wanting to do some of that, I'll be going away this weekend. Actually, be leaving tomorrow, so I won't be on as much content later in the week. I'm not going to be on our Marvel Thursday. There's not like anything Marvel this week, so unless the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer drops, I will connect
Spider-Man.
over.
What way home? Spider-Man. Which way home? Spider-Man. Where's my trailer?
I will connect from the freaking desert with a metal antenna to the internet to do a reaction to that with if I have to. Thank God, I hope it. All right, thanks guys. This has been Pretentious
Just pop
Culture. Thanks for popping off with us here on another Pretentious review. Bye,
All right.
guys.
Signing off.